All right, Crim 4, let's do this. Chapter 2. It is search and seizure, and this is my very favorite topic in this whole class. As a probation officer, a lot of times search and seizure was kind of the thing that we could offer to law enforcement agencies that was of most help. Typically, if a person is on probation or parole, they are open to search and seizure at any time, day or night, with or without a warrant. So a lot of times, police would have a probationer pulled over, and they would want to search them. They'd call probation, make sure that the person was still on and open to search and seizure, and they could be searched. But that's not normal. Most of us are not open to search and seizure. But protections against unreasonable search and seizure is protections that are offered in the Fourth Amendment. So we talked kind of briefly about the Bill of Rights in Chapter 1, but the Fourth Amendment is the search and seizure clause. We'll talk about the Fifth Amendment also. But when we're talking about search and seizure, a lot of times people know it's pretty easy to define what a search is if someone is searching your property, but a seizure typically means either taking something from someone or taking their freedom away. So if someone gets placed into handcuffs, that is considered a seizure, even if it's a short period of time. So search and seizure means that an officer is obviously either searching or taking something, whether that be property or your freedom. So there are a lot of protected areas. Typically, if you're just randomly walking down the street and there's no probable cause, the officer doesn't have any reason to believe that you have or will commit a particular offense, then you're good. You, your house, your backpack, and pretty much anything else that you have. If I'm walking around with my purse on my shoulder, a police officer can't just roll up and search me unless he has probable cause. So the zone of constitutional protection is pretty much any area when we can expect to have a right to privacy, where someone can't look through our things. So there are certain places where you should have, you have the right, an expectation of privacy. It starts with the person or exhibit, that person exhibits an actual or subjective expectation. I'm going to explain all this. And the expectation is that society is prepared to recognize that as reasonable. So when I'm in class, I typically will say, imagine a police officer just bursts in here into our classroom and wants to search my computer, the computer in the old administration building. Can I say no to that? Do I have an expectation of privacy to a computer in the old administration building? It depends. Is it my computer or is it Fresno City College's computer? If the computer belongs to my employer, then I don't have an expectation of privacy. If it's my laptop, then I do. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. Does the person have an expectation of privacy in whatever the context is? And this gets really muddy, and there's about 1 million cases that address, court cases that address the issue of search and seizure. So let's keep moving. Let's say that I'm not home and my husband, neither one of us are home. And my daughter, her best friend, is here at our house with my daughter. They're both hanging out. My daughter happens to be, let's say she's in the bathroom, and someone knocks on the front door. And my daughter's best friend goes to the front door and opens it. And a police officer is standing there. The police officer says, "Hi, I'd like to come in and search this house." My daughter's friend says, "Sure, come on in." Has she given him consent? She has. Does she have the right to give him consent? She does not, because she does not live in my house. But generally speaking, most searches take place by way of consent. Most of the time, someone says, "Can I look in your bag?" The officer pulls you over. "Can I search your car?" I don't know why, but people oftentimes will say, "Yeah, sure." So consent is probably the easiest way for officers to get in and do searches. Typically, people will just say yes. Do police officers sometimes talk them into it? Yes. Is that legal? No. Uh, Anyways, but we're going to get way more into that. But plain view doctrine. So imagine I am driving my car down Blackstone. I'm headed southbound on Blackstone right by City College, and I'm going to make a left turn or head west onto McKinley. And in my passenger seat of my car, I have a brick of cocaine. And a motorcycle cop pulls up next to me, looks over, and sees the brick of cocaine on my passenger seat. Does he have the right to search at that point? Yes. It was in plain view. He saw the brick of cocaine in plain view on my passenger seat. If I leave something, if I abandon something, let's say I leave my purse at a subway station, can that be searched? Yes. And many times in open fields, people don't have the right to protection. They don't have protections. Federal rules do not recognize an expectation of privacy in business, financial, telephone, or post office box records. Does that make sense? So your bank records are not necessarily private, meaning we're talking about financial here. Your telephone records are not necessarily private. Post office box records, anything that you do at work is not necessarily considered private. Now, it gets kind of confusing, but if I'm at work and someone wants to search my purse, that's a different story. That purse is my personal property. But if it's a bag that was provided to me by my employer full of all of my business stuff, then they would have the right to search. So, I don't know, it gets very complicated. Can an officer search your vehicle? Not without probable cause or consent. Okay? However, there is a lesser expectation of privacy in a vehicle than there is in a house. Reason being, vehicles can move. So if I've got a dead body in the trunk and I'm driving away, I could end up 400 miles away with that dead body, as opposed to if I have a dead body hidden in my house. It's not quite as easy to move a house as it is a car. So hopefully that makes sense. Tracking movements. If my car is parked out in front of my house and an officer decides to put a GPS tracker, he can do that. Crazy, right? If it's in my garage and he sneaks into my garage and does it, then we have a problem. Random drug testing. If you have children, or probably not unless you have junior high or high school students, you'll know this because at the beginning of the school year, at least at Clovis Unified, they have us fill out a packet of information, permission slips, all that kind of stuff. And one of those packets is request for random drug testing of my child by the school. The Supreme Court has upheld that school districts can require random drug testing as a condition for participating in interscholastic activities. Crazy, huh? So random drug testing can be used on school grounds. And then we talk about, imagine when you were in high school. I'm guessing it's pretty likely that most of you are pretty young. When you were in high school, you probably had a drug dog come in. The dog would come in. You would be asked to leave your seat and leave your bag and go stand outside. The dog would go through and search your bags. If he alerted on your bag was probably going to get searched. Educators also have a lot more leeway or freedom in searching students than police do in searching citizens. And why would that be? Because safety is always that number one issue. So if an educator believes that there is a weapon on campus, then the search and seizure rights protections that those students have are a little bit lesser because they have so much more to lose there. those are also, at least in California, those rules are governed by the California Education Code as opposed to the California Penal Code. Anyways, so yes, sometimes teachers have more leeway in searching than police do. There are some kind of administrative searches that take place every day that you kind of don't think about. Let's say the fire department wants to come out and inspect your business. They want to do inspections at a fire scene. If you are going back and forth across the border, you're very likely to get searched. At airports, we all probably get searched, and then prisoners always get searched. So there are sometimes, think about going to, if you go to a concert, a lot of times you're going to get searched before you go into a concert. The Fresno Fair, courthouses. There was one more thing I was thinking of, courthouse, concerts. Anyways, there are other times in our life when we might be subject to search and seizure. Now, if I go to an airport and can I say no to a search? I want to fly to New York. I want to get on that plane, and but they're asking to stop and search me. Can I say no? The answer is yes, I can say no, but I'm not going to fly. That makes sense? Yeah, so they'll still turn me away. If I want to get on that plane, I'm going to agree to a search. This is kind of a tough concept for me. It's not hard. It's hard for me to explain for whatever reason. But ultimately, states can limit things. You know what? I'm really bad at explaining this particular concept. State constitutions may provide greater protection to an individual, but not less. Oops, I didn't mean to do that, but that's good. We'll move on. Probable cause. An objective test that would require the facts to be such as would warrant a belief by a reasonable person that criminal conduct has occurred or is about to occur. All right? Probable cause, that's what it means. It means that a reasonable person, what does that mean? I don't know. Am I reasonable? Are you reasonable? I don't know. But a reasonable person would believe that criminal conduct has occurred or is going to occur. That's what probable cause is. And there was a case, and of course I can't remember the name of it right now, but a case where these two guys were at work, and one of them was diabetic, and he could feel that his blood sugar was getting low, and he knew he needed some sugar immediately. So his coworker, he and his coworker hop into a car. His coworker drives him over to a little, gas station, whatever, AM, PM, 7-Eleven, whatever, a mini mart place like that. And the diabetic guy gets out of the car. He goes inside the building kind of quickly and panicked because, he knows he needs sugar like now. And then he turns around and runs back out and jumps in the car, and they drive away quickly because there was a long line and he didn't want to wait. He knew he didn't have enough time to wait. He had to get the juice. He wanted some orange juice. Coincidentally, there was a police officer who was undercover across the street watching that particular mini mart because there had been a robbery there earlier. So the officer believed that another robbery had taken place based on the totality of the circumstances. He sees two guys pull up. One runs out of the car, runs in, is in there for a very short period of time, then runs out and they speed away. Would you have thought that a robbery had taken place? Maybe. I don't know. So in order for a decision to be made as to whether there is probable cause, you got to consider all of the circumstances. And in that case, just for example, the court found that pulling that guy over and detaining him for a short period of time was fine because it was reasonable for someone to believe that a crime may have occurred. So, not every search requires a warrant. I'm saying it like that because I know I ask you this question on a quiz and people miss it all the time. Even though we've just gone over a bunch of other ways a bunch of other times where you might be subject to search, which have nothing to do with warrants, I will ask that question and some of you will still miss it. But it's always best to get a warrant if you have time. Okay, it's always best to be safe rather than sorry and get a warrant if you have time. So it has to be a neutral and detached magistrate, basically meaning a judge who has nothing to do with the case. And I've seen this a lot kind of in the Fresno area. We have a lot of people where maybe a judge and a police officer are married to each other. So that police officer cannot go to their husband judge to try and get a warrant signed because that's not neutral and detached. Makes sense? So you want to make sure that it is a neutral, detached judge or magistrate has to sign it. An oath or affirmation. The person writing up the warrant, typically a police officer, has to swear that everything he says in that particular document is true. He has to establish probable cause, explain why he feels he needs to search a certain area. He needs to describe the area that he wants to search. Is it a house? Is it a car? Is it a garage outside of the house? Is it a storage unit? What is it that he wants to search? And what is he looking for? What is he looking for? Is he looking for a dead body or is he looking for drugs? And just for sake of this discussion, imagine I have a search warrant that has been issued and I am looking for a dead body in a house. And I go into the house and I find cocaine in the medicine cabinet. Okay. Is that cocaine going to be something that I can use in court? And what I want you to think about is I wrote specifically on my warrant that I was looking for a dead body. And I'm going to say an intact dead body because people always go, well, what if we cut it up into pieces? No, we're talking about an intact dead body. Is an intact dead body going to fit in a medicine cabinet? If the answer is no, which it is, then I can't search the medicine cabinet. So you do have to talk about where you want to search and what you're looking for. And then the time and manner of execution. Some warrants are knock warrants, some are no-knock warrants, meaning that the officers have to give notice, like knock on the door and say, hey, police, or they just kick the door in. Some warrants are for daytime hours only, some are anytime, day or night, but that also has to be specified within the warrant. Like I said just before this slide, if you can get a warrant, it's always the better idea. If you have time to get a warrant, get a warrant. The general rule, I love this one, is that police must get a warrant unless they cannot. What the heck does that mean? Well, that means it's something urgent, typically. Okay? But it's always the better idea to get. You do not want to be the officer who rushed a case and gets it tossed from court and has a bad guy walk free. Oh, this is all. It's just explaining the other stuff. Blah, blah, blah. Time and manner. Okay. Ultimately, when I talked about searching the medicine cabinet for a dead body, that would be considered an illegal search. Because I was looking for a dead body and I was looking in a place that was much too small for a dead body to fit. So what happens to that cocaine that I found in the medicine cabinet? It is tossed out of court per the exclusionary rule. Because I broke the rules in conducting my search, any evidence that I found as a result of breaking those rules is going to get tossed from court. It will not be used in court. Okay, exclusionary rule. You're probably going to learn more about MAP v. Ohio later. The exclusionary rule used to only apply to the federal government, but after MAP versus Ohio, it was also then applied to states as well. So if someone is searching something, they break the law, do not follow the rules of search and seizure, whatever evidence they come up with is typically going to be excluded, and anything they find as a result of that would be considered fruit of the poisonous tree. So let's just say we're in that house searching for a dead body, and we open up the medicine cabinet and we find cocaine, and taped to the bag of cocaine is a person's photo ID. From that photo ID, we figured out who our suspect was. But guess what? That search was illegal. So we can't use that information because it's fruit of the poisonous tree. It is something we found during a dirty search. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. That's why I totally love this chapter. It's got so many interesting concepts in it. Oh, but that's really it. Fourth Amendment protects individuals from unreasonable search and seizure. There are a lot of exceptions, and evidence that is seized illegally may be thrown out in court proceedings. And I think that's it. Yay.